In the sweltering summer of 2012, a new star was born in the world of boxing. His name was Felix Verdejo, a 19-year-old phenom from San Juan, Puerto Rico. The boxing community was abuzz with excitement as this young talent burst onto the scene, earning the nickname, the Diamond, for his sparkling skills in the ring. Verdejo's rise to fame was nothing short of meteoric, with many hailing him as one of the most promising athletes to come out of Puerto Rico. As he took to the ring, Verdejo's confidence grew with each victory. His aggressive fighting style and lightning-quick reflexes made him a formidable opponent, leaving his opponent stunned and defeated. His wins were swift and decisive, earning him recognition from fans and fellow boxers alike. By the time he turned pro, Verdejo was already being touted as a future champion. Off the ring, Verdejo's charisma and charm won over fans and media alike. He became a staple on Puerto Rican television, appearing on talk shows and making promotional appearances for his upcoming fights. The world was eager to see what this talented young boxer would achieve next. His youthful energy and good looks made him a favorite among fans, and his infectious smile lit up the cameras. As his fame continued to grow, so did his sense of self-importance. Verdejo's ego began to inflate, and he started to believe that he was above the law. He surrounded himself with yes-men and sycophants who fed his ego and reinforced his inflated sense of self-worth. His family and friends warned him about the dangers of letting fame go to his head, but Verdejo wouldn't listen. Despite the warnings, Verdejo's ego continued to soar. He began to treat others with disdain, using his celebrity status to get whatever he wanted. He flaunted his wealth and status on social media, rubbing it in the faces of those who didn't have half as much. His behavior became increasingly erratic, and those around him grew concerned for his well-being. But none of these warning signs seemed to matter as long as Verdejo kept winning in the ring. His fame continued to grow, and he became a household name in Puerto Rico. Little did anyone know that this would be the peak of his success. Felix Verdejo's personal life was a complex tapestry of relationships that would eventually unravel with devastating consequences. At the center of this web was his long-term relationship with Elisa Maria Santiago Sierra, a 14-year-old schoolgirl. It's hard to comprehend how a 19-year-old boxing sensation could be in a romantic relationship with someone half his age, but Verdejo's fame and good looks made him a magnet for adoration. Despite the significant age gap, Verdejo and Elisa seemed deeply in love. They were often seen together at public events, and Elisa would frequently attend Verdejo's fights. The media and fans alike were drawn to their young love story, which only added to Verdejo's charm. But beneath the surface, the relationship was problematic, and critics would later question whether Verdejo truly cared for Elisa or was using her as a way to validate his own ego. Meanwhile, Verdejo's friendship with Keishla Rodríguez, a young woman who worked at a veterinary clinic, was equally intriguing. Keishla was his first love, and the two had been inseparable since high school. Their relationship was built on trust and mutual respect, unlike the tumultuous dynamic he shared with Elisa. As Verdejo's career took off, Keishla remained a constant source of support and comfort. It's clear that Verdejo's heart was divided between these two women. Elisa represented the thrill of youth and romance, while Keishla embodied the stability and familiarity of his first love. The question remains, did Verdejo genuinely care for both women or was he using them as pawns in his game of seduction? The answer would ultimately prove devastating for one of them. In the summer of 2019, Felix Verdejo's life took a dark and unexpected turn. Despite being married to Elisa Maria Santiago Sierra, a young model and social media influencer, Verdejo continued to secretly see Keishla Rodríguez, a woman he had known since high school. Their relationship had always been complicated, but it took a dire turn when Keishla discovered she was pregnant. Verdejo, fearing the scandal and damage to his public image, demanded that Keishla get an abortion. He was insistent, citing how an illegitimate child could ruin his career and reputation. Keishla, however, was determined to keep the baby. She was 27 years old and ready to become a mother, even if it meant raising the child on her own. Her refusal only fueled Verdejo's desperation and anger. Unable to accept KLA's decision, Verdejo turned to his old friend, Luis Antonio Cadiz, for help. Cadiz had connections to the criminal underworld and was involved in illegal drug activities. Verdejo outlined his plan to Cadiz, emphasizing the need to get rid of KLA to protect his image. Despite initial reluctance, Cadiz agreed to assist, lured by the promise of a significant cash reward. The two men devised a sinister plan. Verdejo arranged to meet KLA on the evening of April 29, under the pretense of discussing her pregnancy. KLA, still hoping for a resolution, agreed to meet him, unaware of the danger she was walking into. She arrived at the meeting spot in her Kia Forte, carrying the medical certificate confirming her pregnancy. When KLA got into Verdejo's car, he started talking about terminating the pregnancy. As their argument escalated, Verdejo suddenly struck KLA, rendering her unconscious. He then injected her with illegal substances that Cadiz had provided. Together, they bound her with wire, attached a concrete block to her, and covered her with a tarp. They drove to the San Jose Lagoon, a secluded area where they threw KLA, still alive, into the water. To ensure she wouldn't survive, they fired shots at her from the bridge before fleeing the scene. This brutal act was meant to silence KLA and protect Verdejo's image, but it soon backfired. KLA's disappearance quickly raised alarms among her friends and family. When her body was found in the lagoon, the investigation led straight to Verdejo and Cadiz. The evidence was overwhelming, and the once promising boxer's dark secret was exposed, sending shockwaves through Puerto Rico and beyond. The story of Felix Verdejo and Keishla Rodríguez is a tragic tale of ambition, betrayal, and a desperate bid to protect a crumbling facade at any cost. On April 29, Verdejo met Keishla at a prearranged location. He injected her with a large dose of illegal substances and then tied her up with wire and concrete blocks. He and his accomplice threw her into the San Jose Lagoon, where she drowned. The next day, Keishla's co-workers reported her missing, and her family launched a search effort. Her body was eventually found in the lagoon on May 1. The investigation into Keishla's disappearance and murder was a complex and grueling process. Detectives from the Puerto Rican Police Department were tasked with piecing together the events of that fateful night. They began by questioning Felix Verdejo, who maintained his innocence, insisting he had nothing to do with Keishla's disappearance. His wife, Elisa Maria Santiago Sierra, also came forward, claiming that she had spent the evening at home with him. She provided an alibi, stating that they had watched a movie together before going to bed. As the investigation continued, detectives gathered evidence from the crime scene and conducted interviews with witnesses. They discovered that Keishla had been seen arguing with Verdejo on social media in the days leading up to her disappearance. They also found a text message on her phone from an unknown number, which read, "I'll take care of you." The message was cryptic, but it raised suspicions about Verdejo's involvement. As the sun rose over San Juan, the Puerto Rican Police Department was buzzing with activity. Detectives and forensic experts were called in to investigate the disappearance and murder of Keishla. The case was a high priority, and every minute counted. At the police station, Verdejo was brought in for questioning. He sat nervously in a dimly lit room, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for an escape route. The detectives asked him about his whereabouts on the night of Keishla's disappearance, but Verdejo maintained his innocence. "I was at home with my wife, Elisa," he said, his voice steady but laced with anxiety. "We watched TV and went to bed early. I didn't leave the house until the next morning." But the police were not convinced. They had found a suspicious text message on Verdejo's phone, sent to an unknown number shortly before midnight. It read, "Take care of it." The message was cryptic, but it seemed to imply a sinister plot. Meanwhile, Elisa Maria Santiago Sierra, Verdejo's wife, also came under scrutiny. She claimed that she was at home with her husband all night, but investigators noticed inconsistencies in her story. She seemed nervous and fidgety during questioning, and her alibi was shaky at best. As the investigation continued, public outrage grew. Residents of San Juan took to the streets to demand justice for KLA. Protesters held signs that read, "Justice for KLA," and "Verdejo must pay." The once beloved boxer was now reviled by the very people who had once cheered him on. Despite the pressure, Verdejo remained calm and collected. He maintained his innocence, claiming that he was being framed by jealous rivals or perhaps even his own family members. But as the days turned into weeks, it became clear that Verdejo's alibi was crumbling under scrutiny. In the end, Verdejo was released on his own recognizance due to lack of evidence. But the public knew that justice would come eventually. The investigation was ongoing, and it seemed only a matter of time before the truth would be revealed. As news of KLA's murder spread like wildfire, the people of Puerto Rico were left reeling in shock. The senseless killing of a young woman, with a bright future ahead of her, was a tragedy that would leave a lasting impact on the community. The once celebrated boxer, Felix Verdejo, was now at the center of a maelstrom of controversy. His reputation, once built on his lightning-quick reflexes and formidable punching power, was crumbling before the eyes of the public. His name, once synonymous with victory and success, had become a symbol of tragedy and heartbreak. Verdejo's loved ones were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. His wife, Elisa Maria Santiago Sierra, was forced to confront the reality that her husband was capable of such a heinous crime. His family, once so proud of his accomplishments, was now grappling with the devastating consequences of his actions. The boxing world, too, was rocked by the news. Verdejo's career was effectively over, his reputation in tatters. The sport he had loved for so long had brought him fame and fortune, but ultimately proved to be a double-edged sword. The pressure and adoration that came with being a champion had driven him to commit an unspeakable act. As investigators delved deeper into the case, it became clear that Verdejo's descent into darkness was a slow-burning fire that had been fueled by his own ego and arrogance. His relationships with KLA and his wife were mere pawns in his game of power and control. The tragic tale of Felix Verdejo serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the devastating consequences of one's actions. It is a cautionary story about the darker side of celebrity culture, where fame and fortune can often come at a terrible cost.